It was a stormy night when Rachel and Alex stumbled across the old estate sale. The winds howled, the rain lashed against the windows, and the scent of old wood and decay hung heavily in the air. But it wasn't the storm that sent a chill down Rachel's spine. It was the sight of the marionettes. Rachel had always loved antiques. There was something hauntingly beautiful about them, pieces of forgotten history that told silent stories of the past. But these marionettes were different. They stood motionless, lifeless, in a dusty corner of the sale. Their glass eyes glistened under the dim light, and the strings, tangled and knotted, seemed to twitch as if alive. Each one was more grotesque than the last. There was a clown, a ballerina, and a puppet that looked disturbingly like a young child. But it was the puppeteer's figure that drew Rachel in, a tall, gaunt figure with hollow eyes and long, thin fingers that gripped the strings like death itself. Rachel hesitated but couldn't resist. The price was too good to pass up. She and Alex bought the entire set and took them home, unaware of the curse they were about to bring into their lives. That night, as the storm raged on, Rachel sat in the living room of their new apartment, her eyes fixed on the puppets she had just purchased. They stood on a shelf, each in their own little world, silent but strangely present. Alex, sitting beside her, noticed how her gaze lingered on them. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "They kind of give me the creeps." Rachel smiled, trying to brush off his concern. "They're just old toys. There's no harm in them." But even as she said it, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She was drawn to the puppeteer's figure, the one with the hollow eyes. She reached out and gently touched the wooden figure, sending a shiver through her spine. Suddenly the power flickered. The room went dark, and a low creak filled the silence. "Did you hear that?" Alex whispered. Before Rachel could respond, the sound of tiny footsteps echoed from the hallway. But when they both looked, no one was there. The next few days were a blur. The marionettes, once still, seemed to move ever so slightly when Rachel wasn't looking. The ballerina's position would change, the clown's smile would widen, and the puppeteer's fingers seemed to twitch in a sinister rhythm. Rachel chalked it up to her imagination. After all, she had just moved into a new place, and the stress was getting to her. But then, the nightmares started. Every night, Rachel dreamt of the puppeteer. In the dreams, he would move his fingers as if controlling her, pulling her limbs in unnatural ways. She would try to scream, but her voice never came out. Each night, the dreams grew more vivid, more intense. In one, she even felt his cold fingers brush against her skin, though she was awake. Alex, too, began to complain of restless nights, but he couldn't remember any of the dreams. One evening, as Rachel sat on the couch, she noticed something strange. There were new marks on the puppeteer's wooden face, small, jagged scratches, as though the puppet had been trying to break free from its restraints. It couldn't be real, she thought. But deep down, she knew something was wrong, something far darker than she could imagine. Rachel decided to research the marionettes, desperate to find some rational explanation for the strange occurrences. She uncovered a name: Elias Kane. He had been a puppeteer, renowned for his exceptional skill, but also for his mysterious disappearance. His marionettes were said to have been too lifelike, often causing an unsettling feeling in anyone who watched him perform. Some said he had been cursed. Others believed he had made a pact with dark forces to bring his puppets to life. As Rachel dug deeper, she found disturbing accounts of people who had owned Elias Kane's puppets. Each had experienced strange occurrences, moving objects, whispers in the night, and in the worst cases, death. Desperate, Rachel reached out to a local antique expert. The man, an older gentleman named Mr. Blake, seemed wary when she mentioned the puppets. "You have them, don't you?" he asked, his voice trembling. "The ones from Elias Kane?" Rachel nodded, her heart pounding. Mr. Blake's face turned pale. "You don't understand. Those puppets, they weren't just toys. They were cursed. Elias Kane was said to have bound his soul to them. They're alive, in a way you can't comprehend. And once they claim a soul, they don't stop until they have it." That night, Rachel woke to the sound of faint music, soft, eerie, and distant. She tried to ignore it, but it grew louder, closer, until she couldn't stand it. She turned on the light, her eyes scanning the room. And then she saw it. The puppets were moving, not just twitching. They were walking, each one dragging its strings behind them. The puppeteer's eyes locked with hers, and in that moment, she realized. He was the one controlling them. Rachel screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the darkness. Alex rushed into the room, his eyes wide with terror. "What is it? What's going on?" Before Rachel could answer, the puppets began to move toward them. The ballerina leapt from the shelf and danced across the floor, spinning wildly. The clown grinned, its mouth stretching too wide, its eyes glinting with malice. But it was the puppeteer that stood at the center of the nightmare. His wooden fingers twitched, pulling the strings taut. "Run!" Rachel screamed, grabbing Alex's hand. They fled the apartment, but the puppets followed, their strings stretching impossibly long, tugging them back. The air around them grew heavy, suffocating. They ran into the street, but the puppets were relentless. With every step they took, the marionettes gained on them. Their faces twisted in grotesque mockery, their movements jerky yet eerily precise. Rachel and Alex could feel the pull of the strings, as if they were being dragged by an invisible force. It was then that Rachel realized what needed to be done. The only way to break the curse was to destroy the puppets, to sever the strings that held Elias Kane's soul captive. But the puppeteer had other plans. "You can't escape," his voice echoed in their minds. "Your souls belong to me now." With all her strength, Rachel grabbed a nearby piece of broken wood and drove it through the puppeteer's wooden chest. A deafening scream echoed through the night, and the marionettes collapsed, their strings snapping and their wooden bodies crumbling to dust. But it wasn't over. As the puppets disintegrated, Rachel felt the cold grip of Elias Kane's presence. The curse was far from broken. It had only just begun. Rachel and Alex thought they had escaped, but as they walked away, the sound of tiny footsteps echoed behind them. The marionettes were gone. Or were they? Something darker, something far worse had followed them, waiting, watching, in the shadows. The puppeteer's curse was not just a legend. It was real, and it was far from finished. Are you brave enough to face the curse? Subscribe for more terrifying stories and witness what happens when the line between life and death becomes blurred by the strings of fate.